Hi, I'm Ready Set Girl, and I'm what happens when your favorite English teacher marries the gym teacher that everyone loves. Welcome back to the Ready Set Girl show. Today, I'm going to be teaching you about the women's transfer window, which is basically like the men's transfer window, except more players are in love with each other. Let's get into it. Hi, editor Nandita here. Since I filmed this video, a lot has changed and a lot of transfers have been made, so I might pop in here and there to give you some updates. But as past me said, let's get into it. For those who don't know, in football, a transfer window is the period during the year in which a club can add players to their squad who were previously under contract with another club. Think basically of a registration period. These set periods allow teams to buy, sell, and loan players depending on things like injuries, needing to boost certain parts of the squad, or to sell to bring more money in, or even release players to make room for other players. The idea was to give players and clubs more contractual stability and to stop football agents from making deals at times that could jeopardize a player's progress throughout the season. Managers also get reassurance that players are not going to be leaving at any time of the season without giving any notice to the clubs. There are 2 transfer windows per year. The first is in January, and this marks roughly halfway through a club's domestic season, and it's open for about 4 weeks. The summer transfer window is a bit longer, from mid-June to end August, or this year early September. As you can imagine, transfer windows come with a lot of drama. Imagine your favorite player moving to a club you despise, or watching a rival club slowly collect all the best players in the world so that no one can ever stop their reign and monopoly over women's football. Chelsea. Basically, there's a lot of scandal and drama, and today I want to tell you about the 4 biggest headlines from this summer's transfer window. Let's start with Barcelona. Barcelona is starting the season with 17 players. This has been a team that has defined women's football since its conception. But the 25-26 season has brought on a crisis. This summer, the team saw a mass exodus. Ingrid Engen, Fridolina Rolfo, Ellie Roebuck, and so many more players have all departed, leaving a senior squad of just 17 registered players. Only one new signing, Laia Alexandri, has come in, not improving the situation much, no offense. And the root cause? Spain's FFP rules. Unlike in the Premier League, La Liga counts spending across all sections: men's, women's, youth, and other sports. With Barcelona carrying over 1.35 billion euros in debt and costly renovations underway, savings had to come from somewhere, and apparently it was the women's team. Barcelona even requested that women's and youth budgets be separated, but the reception was lukewarm at best. I think this rule is, bad. It encourages teams that don't properly value their women's team to sacrifice them for the quality of the men's squad. I mean, this isn't just any team we're talking about. It's the home of Bonmatí and Putellas, arguably some of the biggest names in football. This is a dominant squad that generated 17.9 million euros in revenue and even made a profit of 600,000 euros in the 23-24 season. Yet, fans and experts ask, why cut back now? Cristina Philippou, a sports finance professor, labels it as a bad message, treating women's football like second grade. But it's no secret that the Spanish Federation treats their female players as second-class citizens. This blatant bias was seen in Netflix's Se Acabó, where they showed us just how much they treated their men's players like kings and, quite frankly, ignored the women's. So I'm unsurprised that we're seeing this kind of treatment for a women's team in Spain. Even if they are the best team in the world with the best talent in the world, it doesn't seem to mean anything against the needs of the men's team. Starting their season with basically a skeleton of a squad and minimal reinforcements is very concerning. Who rotates in a 50-plus game season? Who steps up in case of injuries or fatigue? Their treble-winning template relies heavily on depth, and I don't know if they have that this season. I don't think this is the way that it should have been done at all, but the La Liga, I guess, did need shaking up. JK, I guess. Barcelona still started the season by winning 8-0 and then 8-1, so nothing has changed at all. But I do think that my point about squad depth still matters. I find it hard to believe that in a 50-game season, such a thin squad can compete at a high level. If Barcelona is unable to stay dominant, it will only make the league more competitive, which I guess is a good thing. The most expensive transfer. 11 July 2025 was a big moment for women's football. Champions League winners Arsenal signed 20-year-old Liverpool forward Olivia Smith, the first £1 million signing outside of the US, truly setting a benchmark transfer fee. We knew the first £1 million signing was coming when Chelsea set a record when they paid £900,000 to sign United States defender Naomi Girma from San Diego Wave in January. It's definitely a statement amount, especially for a player who might initially struggle to make it into Arsenal's powerful starting 11. But it's just symbolic of the growth of the game. In 2020, Chelsea set a world record when they signed Pernille Harder for £250,000. Just 5 years later, this record has quadrupled. The Lionesses' back-to-back Euro wins are huge reasons for clubs to be spending more. The win sparked interest in the domestic game and gave way to a completely new demographic of viewers. Everything in general is also just getting more competitive as the game grows. Whether it's in the UK or Europe, to keep up domestically or in the Champions League, clubs need to spend. Also for Arsenal, they've made some last-minute changes too. Lia Wälti has moved to Juventus. Lia, to me, is so quintessentially Arsenal. She's been at the club for 7 years now. I think it's a huge loss for the club, but I guess I'll just have to wish her well. The London City Lionesses. The London City Lionesses are about to make their debut as the first ever independent women's club in WSL history and have already bagged some of the biggest names in football to add to their roster. They've snatched up Alana Kennedy and Katie Zellum, both from Angel City FC from the NWSL. But the pair are not strangers to the WSL. Australian defender Kennedy used to call Man City her home, and Zellum used to be at United. Additionally, they signed former Lyon player Wasa Sangare. Their captain Aslani says that even though it's their debut season, they're aiming to break through to the top of the WSL table. She says, from a personal point of view, you always want to come as high as possible. It would be against all my principles to say I would be happy with mid-table. Breaking into the top end of the WSL is an enormous task. From 2015 to present day, only 4 clubs, Chelsea, Arsenal, United and City, have finished among the top 3. But Aslani says, we're writing history and we want to continue. The London City Lionesses are a testament to what can happen when someone believes. A year from when Michelle Kang acquired the team, they qualified from the Championship to the WSL. Kang only bought the Lionesses in December 2023, when they were on the brink of liquidation. But thanks to her huge financial investment and long-term vision, she's once turned this failing team into a hot property. Now she's made history by bringing the first ever independent women's team into the WSL. That is astronomical. Not only this, she has promised to build a state-of-the-art training facility comparable to what the men get. It all hints to the fact that she will not settle for being just a mid-table WSL team for long. This setup is worthy of a team competing in the Champions League. Her goal is to prove that women's football clubs can be successful and sound business investments without the involvement of a men's side. So far, no one has been able to prove her wrong. And lastly, Chelsea. Chelsea continue to collect heavy hitters like Infinity Stones. To their already stacked roster, they've just signed Ellie Carpenter. She was a key and beloved player at her former club, Lyon. Also, Ellie Carpenter in the WSL means that she will be playing against her girlfriend, Danielle van der Donk, who just signed to the London City Lionesses. And they used to play together at Lyon. Now, I wonder how being on opposing teams will affect their relationship. This news came a day after another fellow right-back, Ashley Lawrence, left Chelsea's backline to take Ellie's spot in Lyon's defense, a true swapperoo. There are also rumors that Chelsea is interested in Angel City's Alyssa Thompson. But truly, with peace and love, Chelsea, leave her alone. Let her play with her sister in the NWSL. She's such a California girly and she doesn't need to be competing with Sam Kerr and Lauren James just for a spot to play at all. Well, I guess Chelsea doesn't care about my peace or love because as I was editing this, it seems Chelsea has signed Alyssa Thompson. Okay, I can't deny, of course, I'm happy for her. She's part of the generation that's grown up believing that being a female footballer is not out of the ordinary. Like Alex Morgan was her role model. She has always meant to make it big and now she's playing at one of the biggest clubs, so it makes sense. But now Chelsea are spoiled for choice. It's insane how many heavy hitters they have in their front line itself. I mean, I guess it's good for Alyssa to play European football. It can only help her at the US women's national team at international tournaments. And as for Chelsea's lineup, I'm curious to see whether they're waiting to trade some of that star power in the front line or whether we'll see someone like Lauren James fall back into the midfield. Earlier this year, Alexis Ohanian invested 20 million in this club, and that was really game-changing for them. This is how they can continue to sign big players even when their roster might not need it. This investment and money is simply an endorsement for the women's game. Chelsea is basically an untouchable team, back-to-back champions. And this transfer window, they've only made that stronger. But that's not their fault. This is what happens when only a handful of clubs take their women's team seriously. The gap between the top and the bottom only grows bigger and the league just becomes less competitive. That was the Ready Set roundup of this year's transfer window. Keep watching to find out what happens during the season and let me know what you think. Like, comment and subscribe. See you!